The Athene Real Talk Podcast explores controversial ideas to stimulate debate and active thinking. These ideas do not always reflect Athene's personal views. Welcome to the Athene Real Talk Podcast.
He has been called the best gamer in the world, hands down.
World-famous gamer and philanthropist Athene.
Gaming for Good, it's called, has raised more than $20 million.
Using his notoriety to raise money for charity.
On activism, science, culture, and self-development.
Proud to have him in the studio today. I would not want to take you on in a video game.
What I was explaining yesterday, the bottom line was when we grow up in this society, we don't get taught what to live for. But the only thing that we are taught to value is to feel good. And the problem with that is, as you have nothing really to live for, you start feeling worthless. And the only thing that can give you some kind of sense of fulfillment is these good experiences. And we literally become these experience junkies that crave and really chase these good moments. And just as much as someone that does heroin, for us it's hard to understand it, but it's just because they are so deep down the rabbit hole that they have nothing to live for, that they don't mind even giving up their life for these great spikes of happiness. And that's the thing at the end of the day. The problem with, for example, heroin is not so much the addiction. The problem is that it feels so good. And as a result, you try and chase that feeling again. And if you have nothing else to live for, why wouldn't you do it? And that is why a lot of people, like for example, even people that give birth or people that become a father or a mother, have a much easier time giving up smoking, for example, because the full equation of what to live for together with this momentary pleasure just doesn't hold up anymore. And the issue here at stake is not so much that good experiences are really bad, but it's chasing them. It is valuing them rather than valuing what to live for. People have their values fucked up, and as a result, they set themselves up to suffer more. Your misery, your depression, your anxiety, even your need for social validation, right, is because you have nothing to live for. And it's because the only thing you value is feeling good. And we then find these mechanics of identity, creating a strong identity so it can actually make up to, give you a little bit more structure, a little bit more existential equilibrium, existential reason to live. Although when you go a little bit deeper, you figure out it's just literally a fortress of imagination that just contributes to your suffering. And basically, the boogeyman is valuing these good feelings. It's the good experiences, the value you give it, that is causing your misery, your depression, your suffering, and also the suffering in the world. So I explained that yesterday, and funnily enough, people agreed with that. They say but now, I get it. It's so fucking true. This really explains me. And I was really baffled because I was wondering, if you know that it's the valuing the good experience that is causing you all this misery, then isn't it a no-brain deal to let that go, to just accept it and start doing what you believe is right? Because the full equation will make you feel better. You don't even have to go out of your comfort zone. I even talked to someone that was depressed, and when I laid it all down, it was almost like, on a certain level, it was like he knew this all along. And he even went to psychologists, he even went to try and figure it out, but it almost looks like just a way to show to the world, hey, I'm trying, rather than really wanting to change. And what I started realizing is the problem is not even valuing the good experience, because even if people feel depressed or miserable, they actually just feel comfortable in being like that. The problem is change. People don't want to change. It's that simple. Even if you know it's better, you don't want to change. It sounds like an unsolvable problem. How do you change the one that doesn't want to change, even if you're offering a better deal? What am I supposed to do? What can I do with you guys if, on a fundamental level, if you value this good experience because you've grown up like that, how do I help you actually want to change if you don't want to change? So I was breaking my head yesterday about this paradox or this dilemma, and I found an answer. And this is going to sound really crazy. You have to die. You might say what are you saying? You have to die. It's about dying on an existential level. You have to realize that the reason why you don't want to change, there is a neurological reason for that. Basically, the pathways the neurological pathways that define who you are just keep doing their work. And since you are merely the feedback loop of these neural pathways and this neurological activity, on a fundamental level, these neurons don't want to change. And that's why the feedback loop doesn't want to change. We can very easily identify cancer in a body. You see yourself, you see your body, so like, oh, this cancer is here. I gotta get rid of that cancer. You have a very easy time to do that. The problem though, if it is about what you are, then you just look at yourself as one unit. You don't see yourself as these parasite neurons that are compromised with this cancerous information that has been indoctrinated. You still identify it as part of you. And that is why it's so hard to change, because it is what you are. But being aware of this mechanic allows you to take control. And rather than identify with everything, including your bullshit, you just realize that the bullshit is merely these neurons taking advantage of you. These neurons don't give a shit about you at all. They put you into a situation where you would even go to a psychiatrist, try to pretend. On a certain level, these neurons, their activity has to die. And that is what existential death is. You literally become familiar with the concept of death, so it doesn't even create any kind of resistance to go and change. You don't mind leaving your old self behind on a fundamental level, because you have already come to acceptance with existential death itself. And in esoteric and in meditation, it's quite a big topic. So that's why I would say, like, for all the people that don't want to change, the reason why you don't want to change is literally because these neurons that bring about what you are don't give a shit about you, and you haven't made that connection. But you have the power and the ability to gain control if you're aware of it. And even this information won't do it, because you might still experience existential fear and stuff. And that's why I would say doing death meditation can greatly help you to fix the problem of not wanting to change, even if you know that change is better for you. So for everybody that has had issues with changing, I can tell you death meditation will help you make the leap. Like, death meditation is meditation that helps you accept death. It's literally like you meet your death before you die. It's a very big release and relief to accept death. I'm going to give you guys some death meditation, and it's something you can practically do, because I know that that's the crazy thing, right? That I started realizing. If I could really convince you guys, right, to do an activity, even if it's just 10 push-ups, and you would feel better, you would do it. If I would say like, oh, there is a pill here, and if you take it, you'd suddenly feel much better, you would do it. If I would even say like, you gotta go on the street, even if it requires a bit more effort, quite a bit more effort, I still think I can make you guys do that when it sounds logical to do. But the problem here is, it's not even about the effort you can put into it. It's not even about that. It's about change on a fundamental level. And that is why finding a method that puts you on a fundamental level more compatible with change, you can easily do a death meditation. Everybody can do that. And if it makes you more easily to change, that's when you actually unlock your potential to be able to adopt doing what's right rather than chasing the good experience. Death, dying existentially, allows you to let behind all the bullshit conditioning that has cancered your soul, to put it that way. You can cleanse yourself by dying on an existential level. And that is honestly how, funnily enough, that's what Judgment Day is about. Judgment Day is the day where on a certain level you do die on an existential level, and then you get to choose whether or not you will go to heaven by doing what's right, or just end up living in the hell by following up on your selfish desires. That is an endless chase that will never bring real completeness and fulfillment in your life. And I like to use these biblical stories, because the reason why you have these stories and the reason why they're so emotionally strong is because on a fundamental level they stand for something that is psychological. And this is like a more scientific explanation of what Judgment Day is and what heaven and hell is. There is underlying subconscious mechanics that bring about even the creation of these thoughts and concepts, and that is what they stand for on a psychological level. or could stand for. So yeah, you have to die on an existential level. And there is really a lot of information about that. And the moment you do so, you won't mind so much on letting go your experience and doing what's right, because you do not fear death because you have already accepted it. That's for a big part why you guys are afraid of change or don't want to change, because you don't want on an existential level to die. You want to hold on these attachments. David King says it's hard not to be selfish. People love feeling good. David King, I understand that. And I don't even blame you. Although what I'm explaining you here is, because David King, it sounds like you're new. So I'm going to really address your question. When you grew up as a kid, you had this strong drive to do good, to change the world, to be a superhero and all that shit. But then through social conditioning and through your environment, you got taught that it was not about doing what's right, but rather making money, feeling good, career, success, all these empty things. And as a result, what happened is, rather than following what you think is the right thing to do, which is almost like happens automatic when you don't have this bullshit conditioning, you started valuing all these empty things. And as a result, you didn't feel like anything to live for except feeling good. Anything else doesn't even compute, because you've been so indoctrinated to believe that. As a result, you feel worthless, because the only thing to live for is feeling good. So when I say like, oh yeah, you can let go this feeling good, you think like, whoa man, that's really crazy, because everybody's selfish, because you believe that shit. No, you're not. You've been conditioned to think like that. And you might say like, okay, what do you mean? This chase of feeling good, this false promise, is what's causing all your misery, your suffering, your depression, your anxiety. It's the chase, it's these good feelings, glorifying them, that is causing all your fucking misery. The moment you don't chase that anymore, because you realize, hey, that's not what it's about. Life is not about chasing feeling good. It's just a freaking symptom for doing what is right. Not only will you get more and more things to live for, but you will feel more happy. You will feel even better. So even for selfish reasons, the best thing you can do is let go this chase for feeling good, because you would feel even better. And this really hits home for all of you guys. On a fundamental level, you know that good experience is what drives you. And even knowing like, actually this makes so much sense, you still don't feel like changing, because your brain is very, very lazy. Your brain is following the path of least resistance. The beautiful thing is though, you can actually help your brain make it a lot easier by, on a fundamental level, accepting and detaching. And you can do that through death meditation. By really envisioning death and really experiencing it, your inner child becomes familiar with this void. And as a result, it doesn't mind making the bridge between, on one end, valuing feeling good, what it has learned throughout its entire life, that doesn't work, and doing what's right. And doing what's right, to go a little bit more in depth with that, what is doing what's right? Doing what's right is trying to have the biggest impact in the context of what we are, which is evolving, moving forward as a human species. Right now that is the case. Maybe in 100 years we're not humans, we're something more advanced. But either way, moving forward, that is something you achieve by using logic, science and facts. So logic is more like, if you truly want to do what's right, it's not even about what feels right, but what is right. And what is right is defined by reality, not by your feelings or your intuition. And realizing that allows you to make that detachment from even, just your emotional feedback loop of what you feel doing. Because that's also just experience, And the moment you have this calibration, you can just keep going. You just keep doing what's right for the right reasons, and you'd feel really stable and complete. So that's basically the entire explanation. It's quite simple. It's not that complex, not that complicated. But the funny thing is, like, for people that feel this worthlessness, you guys can very easily identify with it, with this void, with this need of getting attention or validation of people around you, is because you feel worthless. Same with craving for this story or identity. It's this desperate need to get purpose or meaning, because society is not giving it, because they're just selling you a lie. And this is true. But even knowing this still doesn't give you the activation energy. That's why I think death meditation really, on a fundamental level, detaching from everything, in a certain sense, allows you to accept reality and makes the activation energy to change a lot less for the better. Change for the better. Because on a fundamental level, change is not easy for people, because they really feel like they will fall back with what is their direction. It's hard. It's almost like they gotta make a leap in the unknown. But if you're familiar with death, in a sense, then you mind a lot less. So that was quite an elaborate answer to your question. So even for selfish reasons, the best thing you can do is let go of this good feeling, because you'd feel even better. And Masi says, when you say having an impact and furthering human evolution, what are actual things you fellows do in the compound, like day-to-day activities? Actually, that's a really good question. I want to say, like, when it comes down to actual practical things, what is the most logical thing to do when you have this mindset is to find like-minded people, organize yourself, and try to spread this insight. So obviously, being here is already doing the first thing, finding like-minded people, organize yourself, that's what we're doing. And then it is to spread it. So like, how do you spread it? People here, a lot of people are working on trying to spread it. Like some are working on some empathy app, maybe do some workshops in universities here in Germany. Also working on the meditation. Reese is working on the documentary. And then we also have the financial part, right? Because we also have to make sure that financially we are self-sustainable. So we have certain people also working on that. 2 guys working on a game that can really bring a lot of money. Also, one game that we're working on will also help maybe people get this insight. So it's also spreading on top of that. Of course, also the practical stuff has to be sorted out, which is the cooking and all that shit. Streaming. I'm not just the only streamer. Sometimes people stream here as well. Streaming is also a big component to reach other people. People also post on Reddits and on forums to try and spread the message, make people think for themselves. It's a very much awareness campaign. And on top of that, you also have Gaming for Good. Gaming for Good raises money for charity, saves lives.
Subscribe to youtube.com/AtheneWins. Watch the live stream at twitch.tv/AtheneLive and follow The Real Athene on Snapchat.